What if the women sent to rescue you weren't here to save you but to silence you forever? In Sirens 2025, the ocean doesn't just bring water. It brings voices, shadows, and something ancient, something that listens. Netflix's newest horror thriller drops us on an island where beauty and danger wear the same face. Let's break down the secrets that begin in episode 1. The story starts after a strange ecological event. An oil rig explodes near a protected part of the ocean, causing panic. A group of survivors wash up on a remote island after their emergency boat crashes. They're injured, confused, and frightened. But help soon arrives, or so it seems. A group of beautiful, quiet women dressed in white step out from the forest. They call themselves the Sirens. At first, everything feels calm. The Sirens provide food, shelter, and care. But there's something odd. They don't speak much. They don't use radios. There's no sign of rescue ships or helicopters. One survivor, named Emily, starts to notice these things. She asks questions, but no one gives clear answers. Even worse, she sees something in the trees, something watching them. Strange rules are set. No one is allowed near the cliffs. No one can ask about the outside world. The survivors are told to rest and recover. But rest turns into control. A man tries to use a radio he finds, but the next morning he's gone. The Sirens say he left, but his boots are still there. So is his blood. The island is quiet. Too quiet. At night, the ocean sings. It sounds like a woman crying, but also calling. Emily has dreams she can't explain. Memories of water, drowning, and a voice telling her to listen. She wakes up soaked in salt water, though she never left her bed. And then, another survivor vanishes. Emily begins to understand. This isn't a rescue mission. The Sirens aren't here by accident. They're part of something older than the sea itself. She just doesn't know yet what they want, or who will be next. Emily couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard voices. Not human voices, but whispers like waves crashing inside her skull. The island was supposed to be safe, but by the third day it felt like a trap. Survivors began changing. Some became silent, others too calm, as if something had taken hold of them. Their eyes seemed empty. One night, Emily followed a faint light into the forest. She thought she saw one of the missing survivors, Mark, standing under a tree. But when she got closer, it wasn't him. It was one of the Sirens, staring into the sea. She didn't blink. She didn't speak. She simply walked into the water and disappeared without a splash. The next morning, no one mentioned her. Back at the camp, tensions grew. A woman named Carla started screaming during the night, begging for her baby. But she didn't have a baby. At least not anymore. She swore someone had taken it from her. The others thought she was losing her mind. Emily wasn't so sure. She remembered the soft lullaby Carla used to hum before she fell asleep. Now, she heard the same tune being sung by one of the Sirens by the fire. Emily finally confronted one of them, a red-haired siren named Isla. "What are you?" she asked. Isla only smiled and whispered, "We are what comes when the earth cries out." Then she leaned in and whispered something else, something in a strange language. Emily didn't understand the words, but they echoed in her mind for hours. The real horror started when one of the men tried to run. He reached the cliffs before sunrise. Emily watched from afar. She saw him scream, then fall to his knees. He didn't move again. The Sirens didn't chase him. They didn't need to. Something in the air had stopped him. Or maybe something inside him. That's when Emily realized this island wasn't just a place. It was a judgment. And the Sirens weren't just strange women. They were watchers. Maybe even executioners. And if Emily didn't find the truth soon, she'd be next. Emily's mind couldn't rest. Something ancient lived beneath the surface of the island, and she was getting closer to it. Late one night, during a heavy storm, she snuck away from the main camp. The Sirens were distracted, singing that same haunting tune by the shoreline. Their voices didn't sound human anymore. They echoed like thunder in water. Deep in the jungle, Emily found an old, broken building. It looked like a research lab, long abandoned. Inside, she found rotting journals, water-damaged videos, and symbols carved into the walls, spirals, eyes, and twisted figures. A logbook revealed the truth. This wasn't just a rescue station. Years ago, a secret scientific team had studied the island. They believed something under the sea was alive and it could think. They had called it the Deep Listener, a mind in the ocean. The scientists wrote about strange creatures that rose from the sea during storms, creatures that looked like humans but were not. They were calling them sirens. The sirens, the scientists warned, were not just living things. They were messages, warnings, sent to test humanity. If the world grew greedy, careless, or violent, the sirens would rise, not to punish but to judge, and the judgment was final. Emily found one last recording, shaky and full of static. A woman from the research team said, "They don't speak. They listen. They absorb your sins. Then, if you're found unworthy, they return you to the sea." Everything clicked. That's why the survivors were chosen. Not because they were victims, but because they had secrets, regrets, guilt. This wasn't rescue. It was selection. And slowly, the sirens were separating the guilty from the pure. Emily remembered the strange words Isla had whispered to her. She searched the journals, found the same phrase scribbled in the margins. Translated, it meant, "You've been heard." Suddenly, the storm outside grew louder. The ground shook. The ocean was waking up. The sirens had finished listening, and now they would decide who stayed above water and who returned to the deep. It ends with silence, but it's the kind that screams. The final scene of Sirens, 2025, takes place at dawn. The storm has passed. The survivors' camp is empty, except for Emily, who stands at the edge of the cliffs, staring into the ocean. The waves are calm, almost peaceful. But around her feet, the ground is wet. Not from rain, but from seawater. And it's rising. Flashbacks play as the camera slowly zooms in on her face, her arguments, her guilt, the people she failed to save. Viewers realize that Emily, just like the others, was never an innocent victim. She had something to hide. That's why the sirens were watching her so closely. Not to protect her, but to study her. She hears that soft singing again. This time, it's not coming from the beach. It's inside her head. Then we see Isla, the red-haired siren, standing behind her without a sound. She doesn't attack. She doesn't speak. She simply touches Emily's shoulder. The screen goes white. In the next and final shot, Emily is standing on the beach, but not as herself. Her hair is white now. Her eyes are clouded like the others. She's wearing the same pale clothing the sirens wear. A boat of new survivors approaches the island, and Emily walks forward to greet them. This twist ending is powerful because it doesn't explain everything. It lets the horror stay with the viewer. Was Emily transformed? Was she possessed? Or is this all a repeating cycle? One thing is clear. Sirens isn't just a horror show. It's a story about guilt, silence, and nature's revenge. It questions, what happens when humanity pushes too far and ignores the warnings? The sirens aren't evil. They're not monsters. They're answers. And sometimes the answer to what we've done is silence. The show leaves us with a final message. When the ocean listens, don't expect forgiveness, only reflection. And just like that, Sirens closes not with a scream, but with a whisper.